I'll call the June 3rd City of Newcastle budget meeting to order. We can start with the roll call, please.
Councilperson Joseph Day,
Present.
Councilperson Andrew Zelt,
Here.
Councilperson Brian Mataway,
Here.
Councilperson Nerman Zubaka.
Here.
Also present, James Westman, City Treasurer, Antonina Tantillo, City Administrator, and Courtney Taylor, City Clerk and Financial Coordinator.
I apologize for starting late to the audience. We had an executive session for personnel issues before this. It ran just a little bit late, so we're late coming over. So I do apologize to keep everyone waiting. And with that, you guys want to start?
Hello. Yeah.
Right, well, we can start at the top of the budget and then we'll work our way through. The police negotiations are still underway, as we've discussed previous meetings. For many of those items are highlighted and those are subject to change based on how those negotiations go. We have in the prior meeting worked on the professional development and travel line. We had discussed possibly reducing that at the previous meeting, but we are unable to due to some training requirements to keep up some certifications. The computer line was previously higher than the 4,000. But we further reduced that from the last meeting. The maintenance contracts under public safety. You have
So can I-
as well.
So can you just slow down for a minute, just so I can
Okay.
keep up. So under professional development and travel,
Yes,
it was at 5,000, so it's staying at 5,000 because you can't move it.
correct.
And then the same thing, the computer was at, was it?
Mhm. I'm
Computer was
sorry, maintenance
five.
was under 18.
Okay, the
was at
computer was
5.
at 5 and it is at 4 now. I see that. And then it was 18 for the maintenance contracts and we're down to 14.
Yes.
Okay.
Postage was previously 750. We have reduced that to 500. Phone service remains the same. Security cameras citywide. We have reduced that expense as well. The question came up at the last meeting regarding the body cameras at 13,400, which have not yet been billed this year. That's why you don't see any charge in actual.
So the security cameras,
We have,
it was zero prior to last meeting, right? So
correct,
Yeah.
so there was no change.
Yeah.
Administrative expenses remain the same at 500. Uniform maintenance was previously at 13,000. We reduced it back to 10,000 to cut some costs there. Medical testing remains at 3,000. Janitorial services remains at 6,505. Building repairs and maintenance, we had increased that to 10,000 at previous meetings. And we have reduced that to 8,000. Preventative termite and pest control, building heat and electric remain the same. Special event supplies remain at 0. SEO pay job overtime, investigative evidence testing, range supplies, motor fuel, radio repairs, vehicle parts all remain the same as well. Debt service remains the same, and that is for previous vehicle purchases. The scholar copier remains the same. And capital outlays and equipment was previously 110,000. But as mentioned at previous meetings and the council meeting, we have requested a bond bill funding for that. So we have reduced that significantly to $25,000 versus 110. So now we get to public services. The salaries and supervision remains the same. And the salaries and building code enforcement was reduced. The other salaries were increased a little bit for matters discussed in executive session. Same with the healthcare, the pension, and FICA. And just remember, the state benefits have increased, causing the healthcare to increase. Professional development and travel, we did at previous meeting discuss 7,000 as a budgeted amount, and we have reduced that to 4,000. Everything else under this page of public service remained the same. Book and reference materials, computer and software, office supplies, operating supplies, postage, phones, and reimbursable property maintenance, code, and medical tests. Temporary labor has previously been budgeted for the past 2 years at 5,000. We have thankfully not had to use that. So we have just reduced that budget to 1,000. And then below that, our building repairs and maintenance, and we had 15 budgeted, but we've reduced that to 12. Building heat and electric remains the same. Fuel and lubricants was 50,000, and we've reduced that to 45. Yard waste, landfill fees remain the same. Yard waste was 20,000, we've reduced that to 18,000. Safety equipment remains the same at 3,500. Small tools and radio repairs remain the same. Truck and vehicle repair maintenance, we have reduced from 40,000 to 35,000. Uniform maintenance, we have just slightly increased that to 7,000. It was 6,000, and that's just based on needs for uniforms that have to be replaced.
So, a second, I think we talked about truck vehicle repair maintenance.
Mhm.
Go to 30. Is that not possible?
So
After
we
you talked
looked,
to,
yeah, after double checking with public services, it was 40. Reducing it to 30 would put us in a really tight position with the needs of the vehicles and upkeeping them over the next year. Street materials remain at 10. I think
actually, that we talked about
Yeah.
2,000.
we did want to do
Yeah.
that.
No,
I
it's
wanted
already
12,000
Yeah.
last time.
12, and now you got it at 10. That's what
Yeah.
we're looking for. Yep.
And then street repairs, we've reduced to 1,000 because we have the funding in the street materials, plus we've also applied for significant amounts in bond bill. Sand and abrasive and outside contractors remain the same. So the equipment for the parks includes the 75 for the mobile stage, the mobile band shell, whatever we'd like to call it. And we have included 5,000 extra for park benches and other maintenance for the parks. So we reduced that amount to 8. Okay. Yeah,
3,000 for shade and benches, right, and 2 for maintenance, correct?
Yes. Well, 2 is the original amount,
Yeah, yeah.
75 for the mobile stage, 3 park bench.
thank you. The pruning and planting of trees was up to about 32, and we have reduced that to 22. This current budget has it at 20. Playground maintenance and wood carpet was at 12,000. We've reduced that to 10,000. And then contract maintenance was at 75 budgeted, but we have had to increase that due to matters discussed in executive session relating to personnel. Dog park remains at 85, so that based on the ARPA discussion. The handicap curb ramps, remain at 25. The debt service / vehicle lease, was reduced a little bit. It was 110, it's now 96,996. And that is based on, the lag time in when we order the vehicles and actually receive them. We don't start paying until we receive them. So we got a better estimate of when we could potentially receive the vehicles, which allowed us to decrease that spending.
Can I go back to equipment and vehicles and capital outlays? I know there was.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
15,000, but I'm assuming what we just talked about for the city property and parks maintenance increase. Can you tell us,
So we discussed at the last meeting, possibly purchasing a lawnmower with ARPA funds, should they become available from, perhaps not using as many funds for other projects that have already have funds designated, such as the dog park or the mobile band stage or the, AV equipment, or anything like that. So we took the, lawnmower out for now, and then if we reevaluate the budget at the mid-year review and determine that ARPA funds are available, we can make that purchase then.
would that reduce the maintenance on a, that we just talked about?
It
the
would
one after?
eventually reduce the maintenance, once other personnel matters are addressed,
But not with the lawnmower itself.
right?
Like, we don't have personnel to do that right now.
So that was capital outlays. Okay, mayor and council, the salaries and related expenses remain the same. Development activities, we have significantly decreased. It was 52,000 and now we have 12,000. So we have reduced that position to be extended through August. So the pay for July and August, and some funds for outreach materials included in that. And we have also taken away the lodging budgeted for staff of the company. So we have significantly reduced that amount.
That is was that 2,000, sorry, for
It-
lodging?
Yes. The 12,000 overall.
No, but the lodging,
Yeah.
like, was 2,000 for a year, right?
Yes. Sea level rise task force and general code updates both remain at 3,500. Contributions, we will need to continue to discuss that. The request is for 99,000 overall. Moving security, remains at 7,000. The equipment purchase, we took out because that is expected to be completed within this fiscal year.
99 being part of the request, that it's also part of the total, right? So,
Election expenses remain at 5. The annual calendar and monthly newsletter was budgeted for 4,500. We minorly reduced that to 4,350. Transcription services and fees to Goodwill Riverbend remain the same. City clerk and city treasurer amounts remain the same for salary amounts. Finance, the audit remains the same, budgeted for 35,000. Admin salaries, likely went up due to personnel matters. Professional development for admin was at 6,000, and we have reduced that to 4,000. City administrator expenses were at 4,000, we've reduced that to 3,000. Computer hardware and IT services were at 80,000, we've reduced that to 60,000. On office supplies remain the same. Postage, as discussed at the last meeting, we received an update from our organization who released the postage machine from. We don't have to get a new machine until sometime next year, so we reduced that to 3,500. Telephone and internet services, administrative expenses, medical testing, janitorial services, building repairs, building security maintenance, and preventative termite and pest control all remain the same. So it is building heat, 2 on oil and software support. And then the lease copier admin, we have slightly reduced that to 3,500. HR for advertising remains the same, as does temporary labor / consultants. Employee training program, remains the same at 2,000. Contract reimbursements remain the same. 3,000, and pre-employee background investigation remains at 3,000. Board of Adjustment matters remain the same. Building maintenance, county sewer assessment did slightly increase due to projections for this year, so we just increased that from 2,500 to 3,000. The contractual services, capital reserves remain the same. Battery park porta potties remain the same at 5,000. Insurance remains the same. We are still awaiting the actual numbers for next year, so these again are just projections. If we have better updates, by the next meeting, we'll certainly share that once we have it.
Can you tell me how workers' comp is based on year to year, because it fluctuates the last 5 years anywhere from 120 to 2,000 a year, so just curious how we anticipate 150, which is double what we have spent this year, just curious.
Yeah, so it will, that will also be impacted by negotiations, based on salary, and if that increases, that would impact, workers' comp going up or not.
So without that,
Mhm.
we're projecting this number at a minimum, is that? correct?
Well, we put that in as a projection just to, with the rates going up and the, knowledge that negotiations are
How
underway.
much did the rates go up for this?
You remember? Yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
City engineer and city solicitor remain the same as previously budgeted. Acting contract negotiations and other HR matters remain the same. Planning commission amounts remain the same. Historic area commission also remains the same. I remember there was, under the architect there, we will be adding a line, for future projects as a grant match.
It will be is this already reflected? That's the 21.5, or is that in addition to that?
No, that is
Okay.
included in that number, but it'll be separate once the final
Okay.
budget is presented.
So in respect to the literature, right, the area commission literature that,
There's a couple of options that they are thinking about for potential grant, but yeah, it's a match for that. Board of Health remains the same as well. Accrued benefits, so we have reduced it to about 50,000, we've reduced that to 25,000, and that's just to fund the accrued benefits fund, I guess you call it.
It funds if any employee leaves, we have to pay out their patient is sick, and that's where we hit.
So I think we were, the message last time was this is hard to explain, right? Given that we've spent it like to the cent in prior years, like 50 budgeted, 50 spent, like, are we anticipating taking this down in half? What happens then? Just curious there.
So it
like-
funds this accrued benefits account, so it's money put into this account.
Mhm.
And we feel like we're at a good place with this account.
Okay, so this is
To be able to reduce the expense.
piggyback
outward.
for
So with this being said, our projected expenses minus FOP negotiations are $6,157,526. So for revenues, we kept the property tax, expected revenue at 3,100,000. Tax penalties remain at 30,000. Property tax transfers were 350,000, but we have, increased that to 400,000 based on discussion, of trends. Delinquent tax collection remains at 25,000. Business licenses remain at 135,000. Rentals at 50,000. Building and HAC applications at 200,000. Building department penalties at 1,000. And vacant building registration fees at 5,000. Code violation penalties at 25,000. The code enforcement self reimbursements remain at 1,000. Special trash remains at 9,000. State courts remain at 30,000. Towing and storage fees 15,000. Impact fees for Riverbend 30,000. Accident reports 5,000. Engineering and planning and development reimbursement, we did increase that to 3,000 based on trends of the past and discussion at the last meeting. Franchise fees, I'm sorry, zoning and BOA hearing and remains at 4,000, and franchise fees remains at 125,000. The BCAT Verizon was.
Can I ask about franchise fees? So I'm seeing that in prior years, and this might be the one that has a payment that's lagging, I'm not sure. But in last 2 years that are full, 2022 and 2023, I'm not touching 24 right now. We're having 112,000 there. Is this the one that has a payment that lags right after the budget year is over? Because if we're budgeting 125, I don't see it at all in any of these years.
Can't remember off the top of my head, but isn't this the one where, isn't the one where they give us a percentage for Verizon and?
Yes, I think it's based on a percentage.
And if we're getting 112 every year, then we should probably adjust that, like that. I know we're talking about 12, 13,000 there, but if we're gonna see that every single year.
To see the next payment. To see what, if it would bring us closer to that, but yeah, we
Do you
can.
mind flagging that and tell us that it's the last payment when we meet next? Thank you.
Yeah, so then Verizon was at 84,000, we've increased to 95,000 based on trends. Trustee appropriations remained at 225,000 for the road bond reimbursement. MSC appropriations remain at 669,600, and that is based on a 6%, 6% of their amount received for the year minus, our amounts that we were to give for them. I know that was a question at the last meeting.
Is it their profits or entire?
You say minus, we give them our expenses for the city.
Correct.
Okay.
Interest,
And the 6%
Mhm.
figure, that's based upon a contract,
yes, a previous agreement with them.
that, is it year to year, is it?
No, it was
Yeah, that's
negotiated a
coming
couple of years ago. I'll bet you
Okay.
the exact date, but yeah, it was a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so interest was previously budgeted at 50,000, but we have increased that to 75,000 based on conversation at previous meeting. Miscellaneous income remains at 1,000. Proceeds from sales of assets remains at 2,500. The restricted fund balance carry forward is 287,560 and 25 cents, and that is the ARPA items that have been designated. So matters for City Hall.
For the
dog
public, would you
park.
mind reading the 4 items out of that amount, just so, because they don't see the sheet that we have in separate.
So it's the police cars, it's the matters for City Hall office, the dog park and the mobile stage.
Thank you.
The police pension supplement remains at 70,000 and the TAJAB reimbursement remains at 40,000. The unreserved balance carry forward is blank. And I did want to point this out, because we have used this line item in the past. Last year we had 320,000 that we added to this line. In the previous year, we had 438,956, and this is using some of our reserves to fund part of the budget to balance the budget. So this is, subject to how we decide to balance the budget. If we would like to fund this line.
So for the executive session, was that, what dollar amount, has the dollar amount been funded into this already, or is that not been considered?
No, we cannot talk about that, but it is not on this document.
So it's not on here yet.
Correct.
What is the best practice when it comes to using reserves? You know, like how much should we have reserves?
Yeah.
On our account and, you know, just so we have understanding of, and how much do we have in our reserves, I guess is a question.
Yeah.
too.
So Jim, feel free to jump in because you're one of the experts here, but you should certainly have at least 6 months. We have more than that, thankfully. So 6 months of your operating budget. General fund is what you should have in reserves, in order to, you know, sustain any issues, you know, if you're not bringing in the revenues to offset your expenses. So we can certainly, use some of our reserves and add to this line as we have in years past. But I would like to get to a place where we have, you know, written policies, and I know, you know, members on council know about this, but we should have determined percentages set aside for a rainy day fund.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you mind briefing us on what is our current?
Well, I don't have the numbers here with me tonight, but I recall we were approximately $11,000 and $11 million in reserves. So in looking at these funds, we have budgeted total expenditures, 6,157,000, and we have revenues of 5,006,000. So we're roughly $500,000 short in this budget, but we have reserves to cover.
And when you said 11 million reserves, just for the record here, it's not reserves because that includes the operating budget.
It's 11 million.
Okay. If I'm doing the math, reverse math, about 6 million operating budget, so about 5 million in reserves. Is that correct assumption, or I'm just throwing ballpark number here? Or is it
No,
less?
it's a little more than that.
So if we have 11 million in our budget, in our whole city budget, including, and about 6 million is our operating budget right now.
Last month, I haven't finished. current month. I think we're around like 8 million
8 million what, sorry?
in our reserve, like in the account.
In reserves?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can get this, check, that'll be great. So we said about 500,000?
498,
$498,000.
498,860.
Is the difference between expenses and revenues. Which, you know, based on the unreserved fund balance carried forward of years past, last year it was 320,407 previous year. It was 438,956. We're not significantly, you know, off from the trend of the past. I would like to acknowledge, you know, thankfully in prior years we had, well, thankfully and unthankfully, unfortunately we're in COVID, but you know, we did receive CARES fund and ARPA funds, which allowed us to work on some of the necessary projects that we have, you know, worked on in the past. And we did have to use some of this, but we definitely have to consider our options. Do we want to use this? Do we want to look at other matters of addressing this deficit?
I guess I'll start with the current budget again, Courtney. I see that we have 5.8 million in revenue currently accrued, a little over that, and about 5.48, almost 5.5 in expenditures as of the 30th of May. So I'm assuming we have budgeted for about 5.7 million in expenses. Are we anticipating going over that amount, or are we going to be close to that expenditure amount?
I have not done, I've not done May stuff, so I'm still in April. I'm not sure. I don't wanna say yes because I
That's
don't
okay.
have it.
The reason I'm asking that is because with the current actual expenditures, I know it's gonna go up just because of solely salaries for everybody for a month. Even if we hit that amount, 5.7 million, and revenue doesn't increase, which will actually, because we have still MSC appropriation coming up, 157,000. And then minimum of 12.5 franchise fee, if we're going up for 112,000, as we talked about earlier, not 125. That right there is 290 in surplus revenue versus expenditures if we're hitting the budgeted expenses. My question there is, I guess, where does the 290 go? Is that going into rollover, carryover? Or is that going into savings and then whenever we're deciding the gap?
If we don't spend the 290,
Yes, correct.
it will still stay in the account.
So just add it to that 8 million amount.
Well,
we're
if that
talking
would,
about.
it's included, as of now, since we have a spender, that number will be included in the 8 million.
Okay,
So it wouldn't increase from the 8 million, it would just stay.
I see, it's because it's already accrued.
Yeah.
Thank you. How much is the health aid being increased by 29%?
27.
27%, how much is that of this $500,000 hole that we're in right now?
It would be a rough estimate due
That's
to,
okay.
yeah, the current personnel issues. I have,
No, it's about like 97,000, give or take, but that's not including.
About a fifth. Well, we're talking about current 100, that doesn't include the police, I guess.
Correct.
Yeah, just want to get a better sense of.
So of course that will go up.
About 90,000. And I'm guessing some of that is also the positions that were added, and then, or am I correct? Or-
yes.
Any other questions?
I just have a question. I emailed you about this already, so hopefully it's not a surprise. For the next Tuesday's meeting, regular council meeting, if you can just break out this $500,000 on category. It doesn't have to be, like, doesn't have to be
from
a
our-
department, but no, $500,000
Oh,
of the
okay.
deficit that
Yeah.
we're talking about right now. Just so the public is informed, what are the drivers
Sure.
of the budget change? So we understand on the expenditure side, but also if there's anything happening in revenue side. So maybe a summary and printout at the entry door would be really helpful for public to see. What are the drivers for that $500,000 on expenditure side as well as revenue side? As it will impact everybody's. I think everybody was running for reelection recently, and we were all talking about transparency. So just want to make sure that this is the biggest crowd we had. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah.
But, just want to make sure that everybody, understands too. It's hard for us to honestly wrap our hands around it. So it just, a lot of moving pieces, but.
Any question? So I did, we do have another item on the agenda related to discussing taxes. So the current tax rate is 1.2. For the assessment value divided by 100. That amount has been in effect for the past 16 years, and has brought the city through many, changing economic times. As everyone knows, and it's reflected by the budget, costs, everything have increased. So I think we should definitely consider, looking at taxes and our current rate and possible increases. This is something that's being done in other municipalities. And we should, take a look at it at least, to evaluate what additional revenue increased taxes could potentially bring in. So we have, projected, increments of an additional 0.05. And you have that in hand and the additional revenue that could generate. And we have just done a little assessment on the impact to the medium assessed value. There are, options to remain the same. We can look at doing a slow implementation of this, so a small increase over the next couple of years, or just one larger increase. I have some information from different municipalities. The city of Rehoboth is entertaining an increase in a percentage of 30%. Milford,
Going from what, sorry?
going from 0.06 per 100 to 0.0775. Milton has raised their taxes since 2021. So they have gone from 0.252 to 0.324. Seaford is also considering an increase.
0.324, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Seaford's considering a 13.24 increase, percent increase. Smyrna has already raised their taxes by doubling it. So they were at 47 cents and now they're at 94 cents. So this is something, other municipalities are considering. And I'm not saying, we should definitely consider this or not, but I think it deserves, the opportunity to be explored as we face these budget challenges.
With Smyrna doubling, are they having similar issues that we're having with the increased costs and everything?
Yeah, I think everyone is, the healthcare costs have increased, police contracts have increased. And, just the cost of living has increased, so contracts have gone up, other employee salaries have gone up, things like that.
Is there any way to project expenditure, even just inflation wise, historically following what has been happening with our city expenditure and revenue side, and make a rough projections for the next 5 to 10 years as we think about a tax rate that would be appropriate if we're discussing this as a remedy going forward, that would help us think about this in more strategic way. Would that be possible?
Sure. So projections based on projected.
Because the historical kind of expenditures and revenues on the city, but also factors outside, related to the state and, region, economy.
Mhm.
Thank you. And things like reassessment, happening and kicking in next year, I guess, like if we can even project that assessed value for the city, that would even help, for lack of a better word, play with those numbers to see what does any percentage increase get you, Feel like I'm the only one talking here. I'm gonna stop now.
I was
Do we have
wondering,
any, do we have any indication for the reassessment, how that affects us right now?
No, we don't know, we don't have a projected new reassessment value or a change in that yet.
So can we assume probably our revenue will go up, not go down, or is, we don't have any idea?
No, we don't know the indicators of whether it's gonna go up or down. It's hard to say, because it's county.
When will
It's not
that-
us conducting the
When
assessment.
will it become effective?
When, the new rate, I
Reassessment.
think next spring.
Spring.
Mhm. We'll get those new numbers and then we'll go into our next, tax assessment.
This may dovetail into what Norman and Councilman Zabaka indicated, but I asked, or was wondering about maybe the past couple of years in regards to large categories and percentage
Mhm.
of budget.
Yes,
Is there a way to kind of possibly get that?
Yeah.
Kind of just see the tactical shift
Mhm.
of the pie.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions? Do you have any other subjects you wanted to cover?
yeah, I just wanted, to share that in an effort for transparency, I think we should, let the public know that we're looking at the budget. They're welcome to attend the meeting. It's obviously posted in public, but I want to make sure residents know. So I was, looking to put a statement up, on our website that, we're looking at the budget. We are experiencing, a potential deficit based on increased expenses. But we're looking at options and, if council so chooses, one of the options that we're looking at. So I just kind of wanted to gauge everyone's understanding. And, opinion on doing something.
Thank you for saying that. Do we have any money left over in advertising, in admin or council? Seeing. We're already over for
We're over.
mayor,
yeah.
council. And where I'm going with this is because we're talking about measures like tax rate increase.
Yeah.
If we can have ads on Facebook, targeting this area. When I was running as a candidate, I was able to, it was several $100s that I invested in that so that people can get a message on Facebook app to attend the next meeting, because if we're talking about critical changes like this that haven't happened in 16 years, it would be great to get, more people's input.
Yeah, I can look into the costs for Facebook. I can also look into putting, working with the local paper.
Yeah,
Seeing
yeah.
if I can put that in there as well.
Absolutely. So whatever, yeah, absolutely.
I'll send some language that I've drafted to council. If you would like to review it and of course respond to link to me, your opinion, and then I'll finalize and you can get that out.
Thank you so much.
I just would say, and I've said this before, we'll continue to say this. It's important that we get resident input and feedback. But it's also imperative that we look at additional opportunities for revenue that don't necessarily speak to property taxes. And I know I will continue to look at that and beat that drum. Because it shouldn't just be something that is felt just by residents alone.
Couldn't agree more.
So we will continue to work to be inventive and strategize accordingly. And it's also important that we're working on a going forward basis. I mean, not a going forward basis. We always try to do it, but each year we should strive to try to do more and better for our residents,
Mhm.
and provide better services. And I think, having these conversations and working on what we're all working on will do that.
Mhm.
I will do it.
That is our job, to exhaust everything possible, right? And for, good and bad part of it, right? Like not just tax, but also other sources of revenue. And how does that impact not only inflation, but also how do we enhance the services we provide? Because there are some awesome suggestions that we had to cut now you know, that we may want to bring up to the table if we're gonna go with, you know, increase in tax, because that is what residents are gonna see at the end of the day, you know, happening in their community, so.
Right. Like, for example, Separation Day is great. It's coming up next weekend. That historically has been a revenue neutral event for the city. That should not be. We should get something. Our 501c3 should get something. They're using our resources. We need to get paid.
I was just gonna say, I think, you know, looking at it all and not having a tax increase in 16 years. And the city running really on a very lean budget, especially personnel wise. I think what we see too, that in the past, we've had a lot of development that you know, kept our tax rate pretty stable. And now in the past couple of years, we haven't seen a whole lot of new development, some little bit here and there, but not a whole lot, nothing major. And you get into this position, but I also think that we definitely need to make sure that we're reaching out to Tyler and the county to see what their numbers are, so that we can kind of gauge, like, I don't think that there's any doubt that at some point we're gonna have to increase taxes here. I mean, within
No,
the
I'm just
next-
trying to say, like, if
next
we can
year.
make a better decision
Yep.
on, you know, that tax rate being lower, basically. My
Yep.
hope is that, you
Yep.
know, that if your property value goes up, we don't have to increase
Yeah,
tax
yeah.
as much, you know, that's the kind of.
Yep, see what the reassessment does, try and, you know, between a balance of a tax increase and some of the reserves and the reassessment, trying to make the best decision, the least intrusive decision.
And I would just say, I would like to thank Antonina, you and Courtney for going through this many times and finding opportunities to cut. And council takes that for granted, because the cuts affect people, affect services. And it's more than just a number on a page.
If we're done with questions, I was gonna take public comment too while we're here. We got a good audience and, is there a sign-in sheet for them?
Page.
Thank you.
Over here.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to come up and speak about any of the budget matters, please just come up and sign in and then state your name and,
We're opening for questions as well. If they can answer.
I think if there's basic questions, you can try.
Sorry.
Just your left side of the table.
No, thank you.
Because you're not gonna send it back here.
My name is Scott Savage.
Yeah, maybe Anthony.
Live on 36 East Sixth Street. In Newcastle. But I'm here, not as Scott Savage. Oh, yes, no. I am on the tree committee.
Mr. Savage, could you speak up, please?
I am here as a member of the tree committee. And I heard you talking, of course, about, services to the residents and that type of thing, which is important. And it needs to be looked. And from what I understand, we're going to cut here, right? Our budget.
I think about 10,000 probably, if my memory serves me right, from about 30 to about 22. Am I correct?
Correct. That's,
I think so.
interesting last year's.
Okay. Anyway, well, right now, we haven't even gotten into the new budget. And we're already into the new budget. We have bills that have not been paid. I mean, if you drop us down by $10,000, we won't be able to. I have somebody that I talked to about 15 months ago that was promised in a month
her problem was, and the problem is it's doing damage to her house. And this is stuff that's even, not in her property, but it's hanging over her property. And to this day, she's still not been done. They're trying to get it done. We don't have the money. So if we don't have the money, we can't do it. And we have jobs we have problems now that have been going on for 6 months. People want to have a tree taken down or whatever. A tree coming down is $4,000 or $5,000 for a good size tree, and maybe $3,000 for a smaller one. Well, where are we going to get the money to pay for it? Our residents they're not going to get any service from the city. And I've been on the committee for 6 years. And we're not a paid, we don't get paid for doing what we do, but after every meeting.
You can continue. Go ahead and continue. Just you're a committee of the city. Okay, please, let's hear yours.
So, this is something, if you have a tree that has to come down and it doesn't come down and somebody walks under it and hits them, they're dead. I've been walking down. One day we were going to dinner. I was walking up, the street, and just in front of us, a big branch fell on the sidewalk because we couldn't get to it. So, if that's not important to you, then take the 10,000.
So last year, it looks like you were budgeted at $20,000. And this is actually the numbers that we have. And your actual that you spent is 15,000. And this year we would be budgeting you 22,000.
So
That's not, the full year, so there's still bills that may be.
Yeah, I got you.
there are bills that we have that are waiting and we're already in 500.
Okay,
And we haven't gotten into the new year yet. So, maybe it's not important for safety to have new trees put up, but people want it. And they're trying to beautify the town because beautification of this town is going to bring more and more people. And that's, if you don't grow, you're going to die. Business, that's business. This may be a city, but a city is business too, because you have a budget and you have to be able to make a profit. If you can't, then you just say, what's the use? You can't. And again, we go out and spend a lot of time inspecting all the trees, and we inspect the trees many times during the year. It takes hours. We're not getting paid for it. Why do we do it? But because we are interested in the town.
Well, we appreciate it, and we appreciate you coming here and telling us that. It gives us food for thought, and we'll see what we can do. Obviously, we'll work on it.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Savage, I would like to again, echo those comments and thank you for your service. This exercise, we have to have numbers here.
Right.
And, there are categories, if you saw this, or you can imagine how budgets work, that from year to year go under and ones that go over. I agree with you that taking down trees in some instances is akin or tantamount to emergency services. So to the end that you and your committee feel that is the case, regardless of if you hit your budget or not, I would say, let us know. and we'll try to deal with it. Irregardless of
Okay.
where we are in the budget.
I appreciate that.
Safety comes first. At the same time, I love trees and they do beautify our city. But as we plant more trees, we are also planting more expenses. And that is also true,
Well, actually,
potentially, in terms of maintenance at some point down the line.
okay. But realistically, a lot of the trees get, we pay for the tree. But a lot of guys are out there doing the installation and everything else for nothing.
I agree. I'm not saying
Right, so
initially,
what I'm saying is, a lot of these people are doing it just because
it's a labor of love. It's a labor of love. But thank
labor
you.
love for,
Thank you so much.
Are there any other comments related to the agenda items?
Yeah, Phil Gross, 1301 13th Street, and I was not paid in any way by Jack to say that with the tree commission, I've attended most of their meetings. And I look at tree planting and other things that they do as a gift that keeps on giving. Because if they do it today, you get 20, 30 years of gifts. So you prorate it, it's a gift. So I firmly believe that their segment should get more money. Now, I had emailed this into the city, so I don't know how, whether it was included in the packets, but there's 3 segments that I think need to be addressed. One, I think there should be no public money given to the Newcastle Partnership, the Historical Society, and the acting director of outreach. They're getting paid specifically for that. We've not, at least the residents have not been given any information on where the funds go and what their accounting is. So that's one thing that I feel should be taken out. The extra money from the COVID and that, going back to another committee in the city, the River Rise Commission. 2 years, no results, no money, no anything. And before there's any shovels in the ground, there has to be studies, there has to be a lot of work done before. So I feel for at least to give us a head start, some of the money from the COVID and other money in reserve should be spent to at least start studying what will need to be done to map it out. Because you can't go to B unless you do A. And like I've been saying for years, and it's always coming through, our emergency evacuation routes, 9 closed. Now Ferry Cutoff is getting closed. What areas do we have to close before we have no escape routes for the city residents? I don't know, but council and everybody wants to approve more projects. Well, the revenue from the projects that were already approved and the money coming in should be covering whatever's going on. But if people die because they can't evacuate out of the city, they can't navigate through the city, what are you gonna do? Say, well, you know what, we should have done this, should have done that. Don't wait until it's too late, please. Thank you.
Can I answer some of this, Council? That'd be appropriate, okay? I'm gonna just address the traffic. I know it's not a budget issue, but we're meeting with the Secretary of Transportation in the following week to discuss citywide traffic studies. So just gonna leave it at that. So it's a little more complicated than just what you mentioned, because those are state roads. So we're trying to get on their priority list, but I know this is cutting into public comment right now. If I may introduce increase to the tree commission right now, with the whole that we're talking about, no matter what route we go, cover that $10,000 going into that $500,000 amount is trivial to me. So if we can put this for a vote, I don't think there's need for arguments here. Well, I don't know how this goes.
I don't think we need to vote on it now.
No.
We'll vote on it as the package.
Okay. But I would like us to include in a revised budget for next meeting, if that's possible,
Mhm.
so we can vote
How
on
much
that.
more?
The original
The
request
revised.
32,
Okay.
I don't know right now what it is.
Okay.
And then, the last thing I wanted to say is the ARPA use is something that I mentioned already in prior budget meetings, is that I'll be writing a resolution after the budget season to create a budget stabilization fund mirroring the state's practices of putting excess revenue into that budget so that we have a rainy fund in a sense that will be helping us. If we ever need that, it will be specified. Some of the uses could be resiliency, sea level rise committee that could utilize that fund as well, but that's just kind of the idea that I want us to replicate that state does and has a kind of prudence in spending surplus excess funds, but also making sure that there's certain percentages that can be put in there if we have a fruitful year so that we can still put that money back in community and not just, accumulate money over time that, doesn't go back in community. So just want to mention that.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Laura Fontana. I know budgeting is an art, not always a science, so I do appreciate all your efforts that you're putting forth and trying to get us to a balanced budget. I guess just in my financial world in which I work, my concerns just being increasing inflation over time, and you're experiencing it with healthcare costs and a variety of other areas. And as you went through the budget today, you constantly said, oh, we reduced this, we reduced this. But in actuality, I'm going to say it should be increasing this and increasing this because your costs are only going to continue to go up, not down. And so you're trying to, and I can appreciate, get to a balanced budget in a very difficult time. And things are catching up to us. 16 years without a budget increase, things are catching up. And there's only so many Band-Aids you can continue to put on a budget before you can Band-Aid it anymore. So I do hope that this council takes seriously into consideration opportunities. Brian, I can totally appreciate additional revenue sources. They take time to develop and bring forth to your budgeting process. So that may not be kind of short-term fixes, but yes, I agree with the revenue sources. Municipalities have sometimes difficulty in doing that, but I believe you really do need to look at 16 years and where you are today. And I know it's a difficult discussion, but I appreciate you bringing it up and starting to have that discussion because I think it can only benefit the residents. We all want services. We want more services. We want our streets paved. We want, a variety of things. And you can't continue to squeeze the lemon when there's no juice in it. As far as, funding for the Newcastle Community Partnership or the Historical Society, the Newcastle Community Partnership has done waysides and branding, and we have the visitors guide, and we've always done matching grants with the city. So we've done your trash cans, we put money towards trash cans. So we've always done matching grants with the city to get services done on what's needed for the city. So the Spirit of Christmas we give money to, we've given money to the Newcastle Historical Society. So we use our funds appropriately for the benefit of the city and the Historical Society. I think history started here, and we maintain the oldest homes in the city. And we have homes that need a lot of maintenance so that we can continue to say we're a historic town and our properties aren't going to deterioration and, closing up and having, wood on the windows. So the Historical Society does good work in this town, and so does the partnership. And I appreciate everything that we've done with the city in the past and hope to have a continued good relationship. And again, I appreciate all that you're doing. And I really hope that you look at, how are you gonna possibly look at a tax increase for the benefit of all the residents. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else for public comment?
He just called me a thief as I walked by, and I do not appreciate that at all. Inappropriate, Phil.
Thank you.
I'll just say that conduct should not be tolerated here or anywhere, but so that's just my 2 cents.
Marty Ray, 123 West 7th. I didn't hear anything about it, just, something about a dog park. And my opinion is that a dog park is laudable, but not appropriate for the city to fund. I think that's for somebody else to fund. There's volunteers, grants. Now, grants is not free money. You have to remember, it's not out of the city's taxes, but it's taxes somewhere. So grants are a problem. Foundations, volunteers, charity, those kind of things are appropriate for certain things, certain activities that the city is now thinks they should provide. And I don't think that's appropriate. I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. I will just say that we have, already, started looking into, sponsorship for the dog park, with M&T Bank. So just a side note, that we're early reach out community partners for that. And then, initially approved $25,000 for dog park, and then $60,000 was moved from the already approved, parking on Chestnut Street that, into that, for that project. But that's just, I understand your point of view, but we are looking hopefully to have this done, by external partners, but, or at least reduce that cost. And also, sorry for talking, guys, I'm just trying to give answers where I know that you has a little context.
It's funding from ARPA.
Yes,
Not
it's
from-
also funding from ARPA, correct, not the general fund.
If there's no more comments from the public or any questions from council, entertaining meeting, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.